Hello, hello. We have got Nick Prefontaine on Fearless Conversations today. I'm really excited to introduce you to him. He has quite the story that you'll get to dive in and hear. But for a quick little outline, Nick suffered from a life-threatening injury when he was 14 years old in a snowboarding accident. Was told he would never walk, talk, or eat by himself again. And yet, in an amazing year, he recovered and has created this incredible life ahead of him. Top motivational speaker, best-selling author. Let's dive in and take a listen to Nick's story. Hi, Nick. I want to welcome you, Nick Prefontaine. You were an active youth and you had a horrific snowboarding crash that changed your life. So you know what? Let's just dive in. I would love for you to tell us a little bit about who you were before the crash and then the crash and what happened. And then let's roll into what you're doing now because you are helping people become better, stronger individuals. You're an author, a speaker, all the things. So let's dive in. Tell us about Nick pre-snowboarding crash.
So I think active youth would have been an understatement. I was doing everything under the sun. And first of all, I'm happy to be here. So can't wait. Looking forward to this talk today, this conversation. Active youth is an understatement. I was involved in every kind of Premier League and sports thing you can think of when I was growing up. So I was in like 3 different soccer. Soccer was my thing. I love soccer. That's what I gravitated to when I was younger. So I was playing in the town league. I was playing in the All-Stars on the All-Star team for the town. I was playing in a club. I had a club team. Actually, at one time I had a few different club teams. So
Wow.
I was doing a lot of like organized sports. And then aside from that, I was doing I would experiment. I did basketball. So I was doing everything. And then it's interesting that you said that. Take me back to Nick prior to my snowboarding accident, because that fall, so it was the fall of 2002, the fall before my snowboarding accident, was the first season that I was so what was I? I was 13 and 14. I turned 14 that November. That was the first season that I said to my parents, can I just take a season off and just be a kid and skateboard and hang out with my friends? Because the only reason I would skateboard is because I couldn't snowboard. Snowboarding was my number one thing. So I guess prior to my accident was soccer and snowboarding. Those are my two main things. And the only reason that I skateboarded was because I couldn't snowboard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you kind of roll into the rest of my 8th grade year, I had actually that fall, as soon as the local hill, I on purpose made that differentiation. I didn't call it a mountain. It was a hill.
Yeah.
It was
so help us. Where did you grow up? Where is this hill?
Shrewsbury, Mass, Ward Hill.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was right down the street from my house. And I would that fall, as soon as they opened, all the way through, including all the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, I would snowboard every single day.
Oh, wow.
Every single day. I think I did it for over a month. I was doing every single day. And then rolling into the rest of January ski club started with my friends. And on the day that my snowboarding accident, we all got released a little bit early, which is always a big deal when you're in 8th grade, when you're that age. I was 14 years old. So getting released early from school was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So even though if it was only 20 or 30 minutes, it was a big deal. So all my buddies and my friends and I brought our snowboard gear onto the bus to get ready so we wouldn't miss a precious moment once we got to the mountain. And the mountain that we went to ski club at was an actual mountain. Wachusett Mountain. It wasn't just the hill right down the street, which only had a couple runs, a couple trails. So we got there. The rest of the class migrated inside to, in our eyes, waste time to go and get ready. And we're like, what are you guys doing? We can get in a couple extra runs. So we headed right for the chairlift. And on the ride up, Lisa, we noticed that it was very icy because it had been raining earlier in the day. So people were wiping out everywhere. And where the chairlift went, right over was the terrain park. So for those of you that are not familiar with skiing or snowboarding, that's where all the jumps are, like the tabletop jumps and the rails and all that kind of thing. So the chairlift went right over the terrain park, and I knew as soon as I saw it that I had to go off the biggest jump in the terrain park. I mean, there wasn't even a moment in my mind where I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do it. That was what I was doing. So I got to the top, buckled into my snowboard, took a breath of that crisp winter air, and confidently charged towards that jump with all my speed. And going up to the jump, I caught the edge of my snowboard, and that's the last thing that I remember. So I was told that I landed on my head.
Yeah.
I wasn't wearing a helmet, and I found this out after the fact. So they wanted to bring a helicopter to the mountain to rush me to the hospital because of the severity of my injuries. However, they couldn't because it was too windy, so they had to send in an ambulance. And out of all the paramedics in the area, there was only one who could intubate right on the spot, and I needed that to be able to breathe. And he was one of the paramedics that showed up to the mountain that day. So there are still several things that I can't explain about that day and about my accident, but now I know one of them is the reason why I'm here with you today and able to tell this story to people. No matter the severity of your crisis, your decision to take action is your first step.
Yeah.
So something else I learned was that even though I didn't have a helmet on, so the right paramedic showed up to the mountain, and then even though I didn't have a helmet, the pair of goggles that I had on, they, for lack of a better term, they saved my life. I learned that not only did they brace my impact, but as I continued to roll down the mountain and continued to hit my head, I learned after the fact from people, friends that were there, and the doctors and everyone, paramedics, they said that not only did they brace my initial impact, but they kept moving to cushion each blow of my head against the ice. And so that was the second thing. And it's always really easy for me to remember it because there were three things. And when I got to the hospital, I mean, I was out. I was in a coma, a partially induced coma, because they were worried. They didn't want me to wake up and panic and worried about what happened and what am I doing here. So they had to put me into a coma so that my body could heal. And my head, the swelling was already such, like my brain to my skull, that if it increased anymore, I would die. So that's why they had to kind of put me into a coma. And the third thing, and this is, I think, probably the most important thing, when the doctors came into my room, and they're not doing anything wrong in their eyes, they're just doing their job. So the only people who were allowed to see me were my parents and in the IC, in my room at the ICU. So the doctors came into my room and they started to share the news. And anyone that's had an acute injury or a traumatic injury, you know that the doctors can't paint a rosy picture. So they started to share the not so good news, not so good news, not so good news in front of me. And my mom stopped them. And she said, no, not in front of him. Because she understood that even though I was in a coma, I was still taking in information. So she made the doctors step outside my room. And that's when they shared with my parents that I probably wasn't going to be able to walk, talk, or eat on my own ever again.
Mm-hmm.
And lucky for me, none of that got through to my mind. So, whether subconsciously or unconsciously, none of that got through to my mind. So, it just allowed me to treat it like any other situation. So, I ended up being in the coma for 3 weeks. I really don't remember a month because it was a partially induced coma, and they had to slowly take me off the drugs and medication. And it was right around that time, a month after my accident, that I was transported to a rehab hospital in Boston. And that's where my journey began. That's where I had to learn how to walk, talk, and eat again. So it was right around this time, Lisa, that I started to unknowingly use a system to not only make a full recovery, but run out of the hospital. And that's the S.T.E.P system.
Mm-hmm.
And what I can do is just give you and the listeners like a 10,000 foot view of the S.T.E.P system, just for time's sake.
Yeah,
And then at the end, if anyone's interested, I can tell them how they can get it for free. So S.T.E.P is an acronym. It stands for support. So make sure that you have the support of your family and friends right from the beginning. This is going to have you falling back on relationships that you built prior to your setback. T is trust. Trust that once you take your first step, your next step's always going to be available to you. And this also starts with trusting that voice that you have inside of yourself. And we all have it inside of ourselves. And you and I talking a little bit before the show, I wanted to really talk about this voice inside of ourselves because we all have it, and it's come up to me several times during my life. So it was about the time that I was at the rehab hospital in Boston, and when I was first there, that is. And I was in a wheelchair. At best, my voice was a whisper at the time, and I could overhear my parents talking with my team of doctors and therapists. And they were saying, okay, what do we need to do to make sure Nick makes a full recovery?
Mm-hmm.
I heard in the back of my head, you're going to run out of the hospital. So then even though I wasn't able to talk, running out of the hospital became our common goal.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to communicate that to the rest of the team, and that became the goal that we were working for every day and every week. E is energy. So maintaining your energy allows your body's natural ability to be able to heal itself. Medication has the potential to get in the way of that. So, I mean, obviously within reason here, that first night in the hospital after my accident cost $250,000. So it wasn't like I could just say, no, I just want to take some vitamin C and rub some ointment on it. I needed it.
Yeah.
So there are certain points where you need the medication and everything, but there's also a certain time when, okay, I've had enough of that, and you need to allow the body to heal.
Mm-hmm.
P is persistence. So once you take your first step, keep getting up every day and taking your next step, no matter how small.
Mm-hmm.
And
Uh-oh.
I continue to realize my goal of running out of the hospital. And Lisa, it really wasn't like my work was done at that time. I had to continue to go to outpatient therapy for the same things, physical, occupational, and speech therapy for another 6 months, along with being tutored all summer long, 5 days a week, in order to continue on to high school with the rest of my classmates. So I think with that, Lisa, I'd like to take a step down off my soapbox and see if you have any questions. I've been doing too much talking.
Oh no, I love it. I love the storytelling aspect because I mean that's half of it, right? Is our lives are basically a series of different stories that come into play, and they're all experiences that then lead us into whatever our next step is. And I love how you said like trust and trusting the intuition and trusting that forward momentum. And it's literally like learning to walk. because a walk is basically a controlled forward fall. And all we're doing is trusting that the foot's going to fall in the next spot in front, one after the other, to be able to help us just carry us forward without falling on our face. It's the same with running. It's a controlled forward fall, just with speed behind it, right? And and you're right. It's being able to actually hear that voice, that intuition within us, and being able to just know that that is exactly the instruction to which you should probably answer to. So how often do you get, now that you were forced to basically go inwards and listen, how often do you operate with that practice now in your everyday?
So, for the sake of, yeah, all right. So I do meditation and qigong and I've been doing it since 2009. And for sake of time, I'm going to direct everyone to. There was a talk that I did last year a few times. I did it in New York City once in June last year, and then again in Boston in September. It's called My Introduction to Stillness Was a Coma. And that talk really talks about my introduction to meditation and how, I mean, people build up meditation like this big, complicated thing. And that's what makes it so inaccessible
Mhm.
to everyone. They feel like, oh, I could never do that. But that talk really it talks about how you can get started. It's only a 6 minute talk. It's a 6.5 minute talk, but it really talks about how anyone can get started in meditation. And I definitely encourage anyone to go ahead and check that out. And you can also see that on my website, but it's called My Introduction to Stillness Was a Coma.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's still
sorry, I said
it's
we'll throw that in the show notes too. So,
yeah, and then you asked me how often. So how often? I probably do it, I would say I'm not perfect by any means. I probably do it 4 or 5 times a week for 30 to 45 minutes.
mhm.
Um, I do meditation and then into qigong, and I consider that all of my daily practice. I guess you could say. And I think that's the reason why I've been able to build up kind of that muscle of resilience and energy to keep me going forward, which I think anyone can do, which is the exciting thing about it.
Absolutely. And so in terms of your support system, like your family, clearly your mom was very in tune to knowing like, no, we need to take this information outside the room and not have it around him. It's so what was your family connection like? What was your family dynamic like? And then in your entire recovery process too, how vital were they and maybe, your adopted family, if you will, your circle of friends, etc., in terms of helping you move forward and get to where you are now?
Sure. And I love this question because family, to me, you see a lot of people out there they'll have any kind of a acute or a traumatic injury, a life challenge or anything, and say, oh, and hear my story and the step system and say, oh, I don't have you had a good family, lucky for you. I don't have a good family or support system. So therefore the whole step system and your philosophy on everything doesn't work for me. That could be the furthest from the truth because your support doesn't have to be family. It can be anyone that's coming around and asking, and they're always there. You just have to look for it. But there are a lot of people that are closed off to um, it can only be family, and therefore they have tunnel vision and they're kind of shutting themselves off to life's miracles.
Mhm.
But for me, well, and for me, it was family because I was only 14 years old when I got in my accident, and they were huge, my support system. So my parents, in addition to not letting the doctors come into my room when I was in a coma and share the news, they also did several other things. They had before I could even walk, they had affirmations all over my room, like with each day, I'm getting stronger and stronger. And like a version of that, every day I'm moving closer and closer to my goal. So everywhere I looked, I couldn't get away from it. I couldn't walk yet, but yet I couldn't get away from it. The affirmations, not that I wanted to by any means. So they were huge. And if I can actually go back to, I skipped it, but I'd love to go back to a story from when I was in the hospital. So it was after I'd been there for a few weeks and in the rehab hospital, and I would have double sessions of physical, occupational, and speech therapy. And on this particular day, I had already had my morning sessions, physical, occupational, and speech therapy, and after which we broke for lunch. And I was in my room in a wheelchair at the time, and I can remember I was having a weak moment, I guess you could say, a moment of doubt. And I was just looking over my situation of being in a wheelchair, and I turned to my mom and I said, "Am I ever going to be able to walk again?"
Mm.
And she didn't even hesitate. She said, "Of course you are. That's what we're doing here, so you can get everything back and we can go home." This allowed me to keep moving forward. This one moment of doubt, and I think that's important to share because people hear my story and they say, "Oh, okay, good for you. You were in a coma and then you ran out of the hospital. You're like superhuman or anything." No, because I share that story because I have doubts just like everyone. So, if you kind of, and I want to get to, I don't know if that answers your questions. I don't want us to
No,
skip over,
it's
skip
okay.
over.
It did, because you're so right. It's not actually blood family. It's just the people you surround yourself with, right? And we think support system, we immediately go to thinking family first, because that is if you will, an indoctrination of sorts, right? Like support equals family, but support could be your coworkers, it could be your preacher, it could be your next door neighbor, right? It's just the people who have an open enough heart and a willingness to encourage you, to challenge you to be the best version that you are and that you can be in the end. Or the one who just wants to say, hey, when you need a cup of sugar, come next door and I've got some for you, right? It could be as simple as that too. And sometimes you're right. I think we overthink what the definition of the term actually is. And it's not always our blood. It's our friends too, and it's our classmates. And I mean, for you, what was that experience? 14 years old, like an incredibly formative time of your life as a young adult. What was that like with your classmates and your school structure?
So the town Shrewsbury, was extremely supportive, and I remember they would have pray for pre t-shirts when I was in the hospital, and that was a big thing. They were very supportive. I remember the school even went so far as to say that, "Oh, well, you've been through a lot, and what you can do is just rest up and go to your recovery. Um, you can do that throughout the summer and your rehab and everything, and then next year you can do eighth grade over again." And I was like, "I don't want to do that. That sounds terrible." So, I had a tutor come into the hospital when I was towards the end of my stay in there, to start working with me. And then after I got out of the hospital, so I would go into school, eighth grade, but I wasn't at the level where my class was. So I would go to school in the morning for 9 or 10. I would have a private tutor there for like an hour and a half or 2 hours. Then I would get to have lunch with my friends, which was always, it was like the highlight of my day. And then my mom would pick me up and we would go to outpatient therapy. And that was 5 days a week. I had to do that. I continued outpatient therapy into the fall, into let me see, August, September timeframe. September, October, I think, once I completed all therapies. And I had to have a tutor all summer long, 5 days a week. Same thing, 5 days a week in order to continue on to high school with the rest of my classmates. And looking back on it, it's a little surreal that I'm sure you can relate to this. The When you're younger, time is compressed.
Oh, yeah.
So something like 6 months, 12 months, 18 months seems like a lifetime away.
Mhm.
However, it's not really that much time. So it was only 18 months after finishing my rehab from being in a coma and suffering my snowboarding accident that I got my start in real estate, and that was door knocking pre-foreclosure doors, or homeowners that have received the notice of default letter from the bank, meaning that they had missed several payments on their loan and the bank still hadn't foreclosed on their house. So I would go door to door, and all as far as training in the beginning, all I was given was a script. Um, a script. When they answer the door, this is what you say. Here's where you go to this website to find all these people, and then here's what you leave behind if they're not home. You can leave it on their door. So I didn't consult anyone on this, but what made sense in my mind. So I was only 16 years old. I had just got my license. What made sense in my mind was, oh, okay, I'm going to go to the cities where I can hit the most amount of doors in a day,
Yeah.
because I had to go to school, unfortunately, during the week. School just wasn't my I don't know, any like early high school kid. I'm not sure if any of them like really loves school. So um,
I'm going to
I
pause for a moment.
yeah, go ahead.
Was that your first job?
No,
Okay.
because I had worked before my accident. I had worked as a snowboard instructor for the hill in my town, and that was during the winter. And then in the summer, I had a motor scooter, so I would load it up with car washing materials and go and like portable car wash. I would go and wash all neighbors' cars, and I continued doing that even after my accident.
Wow. So you're an entrepreneur at heart through and through as well.
That's how I grew up. Yeah, that's how I was raised. So I would go to these homeowners, and my goal was to set up a meeting the following week for them to meet with one of our investors to see if they could structure something about buying their house. And what's evidence to me, Lisa, that it was successful, we owned several properties in the cities where I did doors for years after I got out of high school, and I only did doors when I was in high school. So that was pretty cool to me. I know that like it was worthwhile. It worked, and then after high school, I got my real estate license, started helping buyers and sellers as a realtor, and then in 2000, at the end of 2012, I started to, well, no, it was probably halfway through 2012. I started to develop a voice issue. So I like had a lot of tension in
Mm.
my throat. And that's how it sounded,
Mhm.
but that's not really how it felt. I just there was a lot of tension. I couldn't get the words out. So I wound up in a voice specialist office in August of 2013, and I started getting Botox injections into my vocal folds along with their higher level speech pathologists, like even above like a regular speech therapist, to really train my voice back to how it was before I developed any issues. So I had developed this because I was trying to, before I got on the phone to prospect for a new business, I would like yell my scripts, scream my scripts,
Yep.
but you're not supposed to do that. But anyway, I like to overdo everything. That's like my nature. So I did that, and then I actually my dad came to me at the end of 2014. I was still a realtor at the time, and he needed my help. He was buying properties creatively.
Okay.
And this is how we still I'm still involved in this family business. We still buy and sell properties creatively to this day. But he was buying all these properties creatively. So he needed help with putting them on the market,
Mm,
the rent to own market, not listing as a realtor, but the rent to own market, which is different. So just some of the ways that we buy, I'll just give like again a 10,000 foot view, and then at the end, if anyone's interested, I can let them know how they can learn more about it and get more information. So some of the ways we buy is on a lease purchase, basically a delayed cash sale. The second way will, and we won't close on the house with the lease purchase. The second way is if someone has an existing loan, um, we will buy it subject to their existing loan and actually close on it. And then the third way, if they don't have any debt, again, just to keep it real simple, if they don't owe anything on the property, we can buy it and close on it with owner financing and then structure principal only payments to them. So, however we buy, we're always selling on a rent to own, and that's where I kind of came in. So my dad came to me at the end of 2014, and he's like, I need help with getting all these homes. He was starting to accumulate a lot of them. So I was reluctant at first, but I finally came around to the idea that I could do this right alongside my business being a realtor. And I started doing that. And then what that translated into, all the marketing for all the properties translated into, oh, shoot, I need to hire someone to handle all the buyer calls and buyer inquiries. So I started doing that. And then by January of 2016, it didn't even make sense for me to keep my real estate license anymore. So I let it go and joined him full time. Um, I joined him full time, and I've really that's what I've been doing since. And really, Lisa, it was really the in 2016, that year I joined him full time, we started holding yearly events. So we hold events once or twice a year where we have the associates that we do deals with all over the country come in. And I've always had the opportunity to share my story at those events. So I've always gone on stage for maybe 10 minutes here, 15 minutes here. And I always thought that was a huge deal. I was like, I got up on stage. I didn't have any notes. I did a 10 or 15-minute talk. I was like, whew, that was a lot. And it was, and I haven't shared this. This is the going back to the voice in the back of your head. So ever since I've got out of school, I've always had this voice in the back of my head. No matter what I'm doing, whether it's as a realtor helping buyers and sellers or as an investor with our business, Smart Real Estate Coach, and helping the rent-to-own buyers that way, I've always had this voice in the back of my head that's saying, yeah, great, Nick, but what you really need to be doing is helping trauma survivors get through their trauma and thrive with the rest of their lives. So I've always get through their trauma and thrive with the rest of their lives and telling my story from stage. So I've always had that voice in the back of my head. And because I've been sharing my story at our events since 2016, once or twice a year, I always thought, oh, okay, I'm listening to that. So that voice kind of died down. Um, Not really, though. I mean, just a little bit. So it was in September of 2019 when I spoke and shared my story at one of our events. Our QLS Live is our annual event, and someone to that point, Lisa, it was probably the longest that I had shared my story before on stage, and that was maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and I thought that was a really big deal.
mhm.
No notes, and I had the talk. I was really proud of myself. So I did that. And then there was someone that approached me after I spoke, and she said, you have an amazing story, and I'm not trying to steal you from your dad.
Yeah.
However, if you're ever looking to kind of fine tune your message and bring it to another level so that you have maximum impact, I can introduce you to a few coaches and mentors that have helped me along the way. So I wasn't ready because I was still in the final throes of that voice issue that I told you I developed back in 2012. So my voice was, when I shared that talk, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, my voice was still really strained. However, I got through it and was able to do the talk. So I wasn't ready yet. However, I always hung on to her card.
Yeah.
Uh, and then finally in May of 2021, I finally reached out to her and I said, okay, I'm ready. What should I do? And she said, you need to talk to Trisha, which was one of her mentors who became my mentor, Trisha Brook. And I had a first consultation with Trisha. We had a phone call. And from that phone call, there has been no voice in the back of my head. So what that's evidence to me of is that I'm doing exactly what I was put on this earth to do. So I shared my story with Trisha, my goals, what I was looking to do. And I said, do you think that's possible? And she said, absolutely. I said, all right, what do you think I should do? She said, the speaker salon. And I was like, what's that? And she said, well, you commute to New York City for 6 weeks in a row every Wednesday, and you get to work on a 10 to 15 minute talk with me, giving you live direction and feedback, and up to 10 or 15 other speakers, and for 5 weeks on stage at the Triad Theater in New York City. And then on the 6th week, you get to perform it for event organizers, TEDx organizers, event planners, people who are looking to book speakers to speak, and like podcast hosts, that kind of thing. So I said yes. She said, okay, that's 25,000. I said, okay, let me, I figured it out and was able to get that together. And this is going back to following that calling that you have inside of yourself. So when I was during the speaker salon, probably about 3 or 4 weeks in, Trisha pitched the idea of what it would look like to work with her one-on-one. And she said she specializes in helping speakers to build out their speaker platform.
Mhm.
Lisa, I didn't even know what a speaker platform was.
Right.
I had no idea. Like I shared prior to her in 2019, the longest that I'd given my talking for was maybe 15 or 20 minutes. And so I said, okay. She said, that's 75,000. I said, I don't have that underneath my mattress. So give me a week. I'll figure it out. And I went and applied for financing. And 6 days later, I wired her the money. I got approved. And 6 days later, I sent her the money. And she's really what I have to credit, like her and I, what we built with Common Goal. So I worked with her from January to the end of July of 2022, and she helped me launch my company, Common Goal. Now I know what a speaker platform is, Lisa, because now I share my story and my keynote talk to brain injury associations all over the country, and other organizations that support individuals that are going through trauma or life challenges, for 50 and 60-minute plus keynotes.
Mhm.
And if you would have told me prior to me working with Trisha that that's what I'd be doing, like all memorized, not like all, I didn't need any notes, nothing, and I'm able to help that many people by sharing my story, I would have told you that you'd be nuts. So that to me, that's all. What that's all about is following that inner voice you have inside of yourself. And like I said earlier, we all have it inside of us. I was there just so many of us that kind of push it down, like, oh no, that's not realistic, or I could never do anything like that.
Mhm.
Um, but I think we all have it. We all need to tune into it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so with Common Goal and when you're speaking to the individuals or the organizations that you present to, um, I'm gathering that you walk them through that step process. And then do you ever follow up and find out that they go and take that step process and put it into their practices with their patients, with the people that they're working with? So then now you have this really amazing ripple effect of what you experienced and unknowingly created when you were recovering from your accident.
So the step system is really it's within me, and it's how I was raised and kind of was instilled in me and everything. I just Trisha helped pull it out of me. Um, Really, so we're able to share it with the world right now. The thing is, I'm basically giving away the step system for free. You can go and learn about it. I think now's the kind of the perfect time to do that.
Yeah, let's do
The
that.
Yeah, so if you go to nickprefontaine.com/step, you can download the whole step system for free today, and you'll learn all about support, trust, energy, and persistence. And especially if you're out there stuck and don't know what to do, this is a great first step, because once you take this first step, your next step is always going to be possible. So, as far as other organizations and if they like take that into their teaching, um, I haven't. I really haven't followed up. I haven't like followed up and like asked them, because that's really not what they're paying me to do.
Mhm.
They're just paying me to do that, to deliver the keynote. And the thing is, Lisa, like, what means the world to me is people that approach me after hearing my keynote, and that's like so many people that are going through a challenge themselves. Like, they suffered a traumatic brain injury, and they're like running up against it everywhere, and they're like, they don't have that. They're doubting themselves. They don't have that support. And the stories that I hear for after I share my talk, people that approach me is like, that's kind of why I do it.
Yeah.
Um, and because it gives them hope and inspiration to continue on and to keep going. The applications of the step system, though, I mean, they're limitless.
Yeah.
You can apply it to really anything, and I've applied it to start common goal.
Yeah.
That's what I've used. So, um, good question though. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Nick, I think that's the beauty of it too, is when we realize that we have a gift to share, more often than not, we're so darn excited to just make sure it's given away and that people can have something that they can follow as a template without having to hold on to it and try and hold it as some sort of like proprietary knowledge. And you can only have it if I work with you, etc. But that power, you're right, to be able to, in the moment, motivate, put hope into the hearts of people, be able to encourage them just that little bit further so that maybe tomorrow's a little bit easier for them to handle than yesterday was. And
Mhm.
and that is really, isn't that the heart of what humanity is here for? To try and help elevate and lift each other up.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's really, I mean, if you really, it's kind of been phrased to me before that, well, what are you doing? You could like break this up and sell S support, T trust, E energy, and P persistence. You could break them up and sell them all individually. And I that's not that's kind of not what that's not following, to me. That's not following the calling that's been placed upon my heart.
Hmm.
Um, the only thing that I have, as far as like for sale, a product is the Step video series,
Okay.
which I know it's a little expensive after free, but it's $37.
Oh,
So
oh, Nick, you're killing me. 30.
so that's like the next best thing to working one-on-one with me, because I do work one-on-one with people to kind of help them through whatever they're going through and really implement the step system. But that's a little bit more like there's more of a commitment and everything needed. But the step video series is if you go through step, or even if you don't go through step, and you want more than just an ebook, and you want more, and the the step video series is great for that, because it's like individual videos for support, trust, energy, and persistence, to help you identify who your support is, to help you trust, to help you focus on your energy, to help you continue to move forward in that persistence, along with workbooks. And it just goes a little bit deeper than the ebook. And the ebook's good. I'm not like downplaying that, saying don't download that, but I also have the step video series.
Well, and it's perfect though, because we all learn differently. We all activate practices and exercises differently as well. Some of us, like, yeah, give me the book and I will make it happen. I can follow it to a T, no problem. But there's a whole bunch of us too, where we're like, no, I just really want someone to tell me what to do, walk me through it, make sure that I'm doing it the right way. I need that feedback, and then I'll be good. But I need the one-on-one, that interaction, to be able to attain and absorb all the information, to be able to really put it into application in the real world, right? So you're appealing to the like three different learners within society, which is perfect.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And then speaking too, I mean, so how many stages have you hit?
Well, I mean, doing this right now, Lisa, what I'm doing, podcast guesting, I'm doing 10 of these interviews a month now. I've just increased it, and the number of people that I can affect and help and reach with just this is like podcast guesting is pretty powerful. But you see, I think it was back last year. I think it was last year. So last year I did. Well, I want to. There's a few ways I want to take this question. So last year I had the kind of the feeling that if I wasn't booking stages, like I wasn't getting my message out there, and I wasn't being successful.
Nope.
Like I would tie my identity to the number of stages I was getting. And that was kind of, I mean, it was kind of the wrong way to look at it, or at least now it's the wrong way to look at it. Like realizing all that I've accomplished. However, then it got me to there. So I spoke for the Dysphonia International Association, and that was back in 2023 at their annual symposium. That was in Detroit, and also in 2023 was the Brain Injury Association of Maryland at their annual conference, and that was the first one that they had done since COVID. So that was pretty exciting. And again, just the people that approached me after, that's what kind of means the world to me. And the thing with the keynote is I can really have fun and tell a lot of stories from when I was in the hospital. And I get to, because I have the time, because I have like 60 plus minutes, I get to teach the STEP system in that time. After that, last year, I did a webinar for the Brain Injury Association of America, their Butch Alterman Memorial Webinar, and they only have that a couple times a year. That was in November of last year. So that was pretty exciting to do. Then, sorry, I'm answering your question, just giving you this rundown.
It's okay. It's interesting because it's there's associations you're listing that so many people don't even know exist. And so you're also now helping them expand their reach and knowledge. And podcasts are amazing because I mean, we're recording here June of 2025, but June of 2028, someone might stumble on this interview. And
Yeah.
it's still in essence relevant information because your story is timeless as well. And that's the beauty of being able to speak on stage, but podcast lasts longer in that whole span of information sharing.
Yes, and I used to think that they were different, but it's actually they're one and the same. They get my message out there. There have been several of my like friends and associates that I've met on this journey that have really taught me that they're the same and you shouldn't like rank one above the other. So then if you roll into December of last year, I was a closing keynote speaker for the Brain Injury Alliance of Vermont
Mhm.
at their annual conference. And that was really cool too, because I got to, it was like a 3 day conference and I got to actually be a part of it and participate in all the days like prior to me sharing my message. And what was really cool to me was I was able to like really see, and every time I speak at brain injury associations, I'm able to see like, all right, this is my tribe. This is like what it's all about. Because every presentation, I was like, yup, yep, that's 100% right. Yup. I was like, that's I almost like I almost was able to see the how of why I was able to recover the way I did. I'm like, oh, I never realized that that's why I did, like, connect the dots kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, then in this past April, I spoke for the Brain Injury Alliance of Minnesota at their Lunch and Learn series. Um, so those are some pretty cool stages that I've taken. What I'm excited about now is doing more and more, like I said, of this podcast guesting. I'm doing 10 a month right now, and I couldn't be happier because just the every so the message is the same. Basically, the message is the same. However, it comes out differently depending on what that podcast and what that host needs at the time when I meet with them and when I'm on their show. Um, and that's really exciting to me that it's all tailored a little bit different. It all comes out a little bit different based on what everyone needs at that time, that show and that audience and everything like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I also see your message and your story could be incredibly powerful within the school system or sports programs. Just that honestly, the step system alone for young kids, young adults to realize it, acknowledge it, even just have some, 3, 4 tricks to be able to identify their solid support system rather than, the quote unquote cool kids that they want as part of their support system and being able to step forward in their life as they become adults with that structure to go back to. How powerful would that be for them to be able to walk through graduating with already having that in place rather than having to try and figure it out later on?
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, it's very, very important. Yeah, very applicable for them too.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, I've learned so much from you, and it's truly amazing, really, because usually when a diagnosis of never going to walk, talk, eat, do those normal everyday things again turns into running outside of a hospital because we're finally done. And now presenting and speaking on stage, going right back into our own like self-driven entrepreneurial type business and employment and everything else that you've done. You've beat the odds, but you've also proven that what people say about us isn't always true. And your persistence has really shown that following those steps and being able to stay on that positive energy and maintaining your own physical energy on a healthy level is so vital for just really opening the entire world to ourselves and turning our future into whatever we see possible and what our intuition is telling us is possible. You're proof of that. And I'm so thankful that you're here to share your story with us and help the listeners maybe take a moment and think, where can I go and capture those things so I can step forward a little bit more confidently in my life as well? Because you ooze confidence. And it's amazing being able to witness that. And yes, we all have our downtimes, but you also have the skills to be able to acknowledge when you're having a down and a low point and move forward with those skills that you have developed throughout your entire upbringing. Is there anything you'd like to leave the listeners with as we part ways here?
Yeah, so I think I already shared how they can download the S.T.E.P system for free. I didn't share this though. I know I went over. It's part of who I am. It's part of my story. The real estate aspect, and how we buy and sell homes creatively without using any of our credit or money. If you're interested in learning more about that, you can go to our website, smartrealestatecoach.com/masters class. And there you'll be able to get signed up for a master's class, which is going to teach you all about how we buy and sell on terms, is what we like to call it, without using any of our credit, sending personally, or money, or big investor payments, or anything like that. So
perfect. Fabulous. So we've got resources for everybody and a whole lot of just really inspirational information and lessons that our listeners can take away from today with you. So I appreciate this so much. Thank you for your time, Nick.
Oh, this has been a blast. Thanks, Lisa.